Christine Jacobs, and I'm the Executive Director of Represent PA. We are the PAC in Pennsylvania dedicated to supporting progressive women who are running for the state legislature, with the idea that we believe in reflective democracy. And until and unless our elected officials look like all of us, in however you want to measure it, we're not going to have the democracy we think we have or that we deserve. So today, over the course of the last 2 years since the last general election, we've worked really hard to try and educate our donors and friends and people who call in about what are the major issues in Pennsylvania. What do you care about, and what is going on? Why don't we have better rules around women's health care? Why don't we fully fund education? Why don't we have LGBTQ rights in Pennsylvania? On and on and on. And we've talked about all kinds of issues. And we've had both activists and subject matter experts and legislators. We've talked about how campaigns are run and how come it takes so much money to run a campaign. We've talked about the fact that women are not necessarily the best, and I say that nicely, donors to campaigns. And so that's part of the reason that women haven't gotten their fair share in elected office, is that women are not giving. We've talked about the role of the party and how sometimes I always say that we didn't get to be so bad in Pennsylvania without the Democrats being fully complicit. And that's one of Represent's roles, is to really help find candidates who the local party might not normally think is a good candidate, and really give them the oomph they need to make it onto the general election. So tonight we're mixing it up. Tonight we feature our facilitator, Lucy Noland, who's been with us before, but she's an award-winning storyteller and journalist. And what we've asked Lucy to do is talk to a few of our candidates and find out what we call our tales of the trails. What's really going on? What is it really like running for office? Is it what you thought it would be? And what kind of good stories do you have for us? Since most of our donors and most of our people who generally listen to our events are women, we know women are good storytellers, and we like to hear good stories. So Lucy Noland, take it away and help tell us some stories.
Yeah, thank you so much, Chris. Like I said, it's just an absolute honor to join you this evening. Midterms, historically in the eyes of voters tend to be rather ho-hum, but with apologies to my 8th grade English teacher, Miss Baker, this ain't no ordinary midterm. I mean, a lot of folks truly believe, and I believe, that this is a crucial election. Some would argue that the democracy itself hangs in the balance. So let's get to it, and let's meet our candidates in alphabetical order. I'm trying to be as fair as possible here. So we'll begin with District 88. The Cumberland County area is Sara Agerton. So Sara, please, if you could briefly share a little bit about yourself and also how Represent PA's early funding has impacted your campaign.
Well, thank you for inviting me to be here. My name is Sara Agerton. I am a social worker, and I currently serve in a local office as Mechanicsburg Borough as a council person. And for the last 20 years, I've been finding solutions for families all over Pennsylvania. It's really important to me that as I saw the gaps in services increasing, and also seeing that just how divisive our politics has become. I walked home from that election in 2016, like many people, with a lump in my throat. I was a poll worker, trying to go home and explain to my teenage daughter why we didn't win, but also explaining that sometimes we don't win and we have to fight harder the next time. So that took me down a path of running for office and trying to be a great example, getting more involved into my community, and putting my anger more into service and being a solution, and not just one of those people complaining. So I'm excited for the run, because I think social work is really what the State House needs. And the early money for me has been so integral. Being a woman, being a first-time candidate for the House, and a social worker, asking for money is often very difficult. But that money that I received has helped to fund my campaign staff. So I was able to invest in a field team that has allowed me personally to knock 10,000 doors. We were able to knock over 26,000 doors and had 13,000 contacts I think it was last week. But that money has allowed my campaign to gain steam and turn it from a long shot to now I think we're considered a toss-up. And so that money early on is the key to keeping me in this race and hopefully winning it in November. I feel great about it. And I thank you guys for giving that and funding my team and making sure that we were competitive.
Thank you so much, Sarah. Now in the race to represent District 168 in Delaware County is Lisa Borowski. Lisa, if you could tell us briefly about yourself and also how Represent PA's emphasis on early funding helped you.
Sure. Thank you so much, Lucy, and thank you to Represent for allowing me this opportunity to again speak with you. I am so grateful to have Represent in my corner. As we move forward with this race, we are working really hard to flip one of the last 2 red seats in Delaware County blue and send more Democratic representation to the State House. So I am currently a Radnor Township Commissioner. The 168th was redrawn and now includes Radnor Township. So that is why I have the opportunity to run for this seat. I also served for 4 years on Radnor's school board. So I've been in public service for almost 11 years. And I have gotten a great deal of satisfaction serving my neighbors. I got involved really when my youngest son came home from school one day. He was crying because our favorite gym teacher at our elementary school told the kids he was afraid he was going to lose his job. We had a board at the time that was not interested in investing in our schools. They were looking to cut teacher positions in order to fund our budget. And I started paying attention. One night I was watching a school board meeting and I was yelling at my TV and I decided to get up off my couch and go make public comment. I drove over in my pajamas and made public comment. And after that, I decided I can't sit on my couch just yelling at my TV. So I ran for school board. Then after that, ran for commissioner. We've done some fantastic things while I've been in office. One of those certainly is bringing full day kindergarten to our school district, which we're really proud of. But for me, having Represent in my corner, so my race is the most expensive race in the state of Pennsylvania, mainly because my district sits in 3 different media markets. So having the early money from Represent allowed us to reserve media time, allowed us to start and plan for a really robust mail campaign to go up against a 6-year incumbent. Without that money, to kind of get us started and jumpstart our efforts, we probably would not be in such a strong position right now. We actually have my opponent. We have him feeling scared. So he is trying to respond to some of the things that we are presenting about him and his voting record. And he is on the defense. So we kind of like that. And we like that being in that position. And we thank Represent for the funding, the early funding that allowed us to plan such an important mail campaign and ad campaign in a time when media dollars are, very expensive and much needed. So thank you so much, Represent, and thank you to everyone who has contributed to support candidates like myself.
Now, if you could just find that picture of you in the pajamas talking to the school board.
I know, I wish I had it. I just went and no one, there are people who definitely remember it though. I served with school board members who remember. They thought I was crazy. They thought I was a little crazy.
No, that's passion. That's called passion. That's what you'll bring to Harrisburg. All right. Thank you so much, Lisa. Running in District 189, which includes Monroe and Pike counties, is Tarah Probst, and that would be Mayor Tarah Probst. So Tarah, if you could briefly introduce yourself to us and then also share how the early funding from Represent PA has helped you.
Sure. So yes, I'm Tarah Probst. I'm the mayor of Stroudsburg Borough. I was just recently elected for a 3rd term and proud to say that I received 70% of the vote with a massive turnout. And I'm really proud of that because I was the first female mayor ever elected in my town's 200+ year history. Thank you. And like you, Lisa, I too got really motivated at a school board. I was always political. I was raised by a single mom, a grandmother, an aunt, hard workers, women's rights. If a man can do it, so could they. So I grew up in that type of a household. So understand that they were pretty strong Democrats. I always say I was born and smacked and I was a Democrat, you know, but their reasons were right for being a Democrat. And so I hold those values very personal to me. They mean so much now that they're all gone and have passed. I just think about some of the things that they went through that them fighting, making my life better. And now here we sit and we're getting rights taken away. First time in over 260 years. And it's very, very scary to me. But my story starts off where my son, who is 15 now, was in first grade. And in November of 2013, we had a 23% turnout in the county for school board elections. So we got a Tea Party school board. And the first thing they did day one on the job is close 2 elementary schools. Well, one of them just happened to be the one my son was in. So they only did it because they want to see the demise of public education. And it was the early on Tea Party, the voucher system, school choice. They were one of the first ones to start it. Now you have the Moms for Liberty coming to every school board. So they just morph into different, I call them demons, trying to demise public education. So a group of my friends and I really went door to door, organized, and we got people to understand how important the school board is, how important it is for public education, knowing what you're voting for. So I'm proud to say that when the elections came up in 2015, these 5 people got swept off their own Republican ticket by Democrats. And Republicans were voting for these Democrats because they didn't like, even there were some Republicans back then that, you know, still care about public education. And after we did that, we had a huge turnout in our school district, and our mayor had died in office. So the Democratic Party said, boy, you guys did a great job. You got people organized. You got them to, you know, learn about local politics. You should run for mayor. So basically I did. I talked with my husband, and got with my brother, and he's like, look, if you're going to do it, go big or go home type of a thing. So I put everything I had into my town and successfully won in 15. Well, actually I won by 33 votes. I'm not going to kid myself. In 17, I won by 67% of all votes. And then in 2021, I won by 70% of all the votes with a huge turnout. So this 189th district opened, and we are so gerrymandered here in the Poconos. I think Pennsylvania is very gerrymandered, to the point where they had all the Democrats kind of shoved in one district. It was the 115th, where Maureen Madden was. And now with fair districts, the districts, they're definitely more fair. Mine is basically Route 209. I mean, you can drive into each one of my districts, where the old 189th, you'd have to like skip through 2 parts of town to get over to the other highway to jump into the district, because it was just so gerrymandered. So this new 189th district, when I ran for Senate 4 years ago against a 20-year incumbent, I actually beat him by 2,000 votes in this district. And I beat the current representative, Rosemary Brown, who's running for Senate, by, I believe it was almost 400 votes. So when I saw this open up, I said, I'm gonna run and I'm gonna win, because I need to get there and defend a woman's right to her body first and foremost, and public education. And that's exactly what I'm gonna do. As for Represent, they were with me 4 years ago in a very gerrymandered district, and they gave me some money. It wasn't life-changing money, but it was money showing like, hey, we know you're not going to win, but we're going to give you something. And they did. And I got 44,000 votes. And the win number back then was only 36,000. Unbelievable to show me the support they did, knowing that my district was really, really gerrymandered. So let's fast forward. Now we're 4 years later, and I'm running for the House. I have a great district. They reached out to me and they gave me startup money, which, my God, it helped me get my signs, my cards, my staff. It really got that ball rolling for me. And then it gives me time to work and knock on doors and make phone calls and all of that. And then they see how hard you're working, and then they give you more. Next thing you know, I've got a billboard campaign. I've got mailers going out. I have television. So the money that Represent gave me, I can say not only paid for my billboards, it also helped me with a mailer in my district. And it is expensive. And you ladies and all that you did stood behind me. I just can't, I just don't even know what to say. There's nothing better than women supporting women. And even when you know they're in a tough district, you're still supporting them. And I'm telling you, you're going to keep doing this, and we're going to keep winning, and we're going to keep winning, and we're going to keep growing. And I thank you so much, because you kicked me, you gave me the kickstart, you got me off the ground, you got my advertising started. And the last polling, I was up double digits, but I run like I'm losing. And I'll be in the 189th, and I'll be sitting here with you guys, supporting you all the way with the next set of candidates.
I'll be the one in the balcony, Tara. When you get sworn in, I'll be the one up there crying. So,
well, me too. Thank you.
Oh, that's great. All right. Thank you so much, Tara. So let's go ahead and head on over to District 160, which includes both Delaware and Chester counties. Cathy Spahr. So evening to you, Cathy. If you could briefly introduce yourself and also explain how Represent PA's money helped you and your campaign.
Yep, so Cathy Spahr, and I am currently a senior transportation planner for Delaware County Planning Department. I like to tell people that my whole goal there is to get people connected safely to other forms of mobility, to get them out of their cars so we can reduce our carbon footprint. That's a big challenge in Delco because we're pretty built out and not a lot of sidewalks. So always a challenge, but I like challenges. Before that, I worked for Newtown Township and Newtown Square as a very out Democrat and a very Republican township, and still got a lot of really good things done. I've often worked with Lisa Borowski because Radnor was our neighbor, or is our neighbor, and got a lot of really good things done. So I had a great opportunity to see good government working for people. That's not what we have in Harrisburg. We do not have a government that works for people. We have a government that has a party that is intent on taking away rights, defunding our public education, destroying our environment, and that is all they want to do, which is not for the good of Pennsylvanians, all Pennsylvanians. I got involved in this because like all of us, we seem to have our moment, right? Well, my moment, like everybody else, a Trump, right? And I was very worried about what was going to happen to the environment. And I was like constantly up in my head because of it. And one day I was like, Toomey needs a copy of the Lorax by Dr. Seuss. Bob needs one too. You know what? They all need one. Second grade reading level, what could be more perfect, right? And it morphed into this thing where we decided to use it to teach our kids how to lobby Congress. And so somehow I ended up with over 535 copies of the Lorax in suitcases, heading down to DC and teaching our kids how to lobby Congress. And in the end, the parents just served as, you know, the referees in the hallways to make sure nobody was getting in fist fights and nobody was getting too hangry. And that's what we did. And Leanne Kruger came around and caught wind of this and said, well, you need to do this in Harrisburg because we got issues in Harrisburg. And so we started doing that in Harrisburg as well. So fast forward, here I am running for the 160th House seat with the help of Represent. And I mean, like everybody else has said today, that money is just, that early money was integral to getting staffed up, to be able to feel like I can do this. I can, you know, raise the money. I can fund my mail program. I can fund my digital program. I can get yard signs. I can do all of this. And truly, women supporting women are how we need to move forward and smash the patriarchy. Because women in our worst moments are actually the perpetuators of the patriarchy. But when we come together and tear that away, we can actually build each other up and make a more equitable Pennsylvania and a more equitable world. And, I'm ready to get to Harrisburg and do that. My opponent is, to put it nicely, as a jerk, and sent out a really nasty mailer trying to tear me down. And you know what? I'm just going to go knock more doors, dude. So he's running scared, and that's why he's sending out the nastiest of nasty. And that's okay, because I'm going to go knock more doors.
All right. Thank you so much. I really appreciate it, Cathy. And this is what we're talking about here. So out of the gate, let's talk about knocking on the doors and making those phone calls and attending all the events and hosting events and talking to your neighbors in your districts. What are their main concerns right now? What are you hearing? So let's go ahead and start with Sara on that.
Yeah, there's two common themes. Of course, we're hearing about the economy and people being upset about that. But the next biggest issue that is across all doors and all women is our bodily autonomy. So I have met a lot of people out there knocking on doors. I've heard stories from women that had to make that choice. And I met a veteran on the trail, and she told me a story about while she was in service that she was raped. And, if she wouldn't have been able to have that right to choose, that there was a lot of consequences that would have happened within the military. She knew she would have lost her career. She knew that, she would have had to have a baby that was, part of her trauma. And so she's a big outspoken person about this right to choose. And I think about that as I knock doors and I listen to people who are upset and know that really does not have a political party when we're talking about that. So I really want you to know that is a very big issue from door to door that I hear.
All right. Lisa, biggest issue that you're hearing?
So I'd have to agree. I think with Sara, we're definitely hearing about the economy from people. But I think, for me, mostly, definitely there are people, and it's cutting across all political spectrums, is definitely the choice issue, and protecting those reproductive rights in the state. One of our other big issues around here is certainly open space. I'm sure Cathy understands that. We definitely have, preservation of open space, and certainly gun safety and funding of our police and our fire here in the area as well. So those are some of the big issues that we're hearing. But I've heard more about choice. I've also heard about, people just being concerned about our democracy. And again, that is cutting across every political spectrum here. And people, Republicans who are just very disillusioned with what is happening currently right now in Harrisburg, as well as on the federal level.
And I know that you've been doing a lot of door knocking, Lisa, at independents and GOP households.
Yeah, personally myself, up until about last weekend, I was only knocking Republican and independent doors. So my campaign since June, we've knocked over 25,000 doors. And, last weekend we knocked 2,500 as part of our GOTV effort. But it was nice to be on some Democratic doors, but I will say that the reception on the Republican and independent doors has been, really good. It's been really good. I'm married to a Republican, so there's a lot of moderates who feel like they don't have a party right now. So we're definitely hearing that.
All right. And Tarah, when you're out there, what are you hearing?
So, well, it's a little nerve-wracking because a couple months ago, it was a woman's right to choose. And I do believe that every woman's door that I knocked, still that is their number one. But all the polling is showing it's the economy. And it kind of scares me a little bit, because if you don't have your rights, who cares about the economy? That's going to be ebb and flows we're going to see this go on in another decade, the ebb and flows of the economy. So I try to explain that to people. I try to talk to them about their rights. But in Monroe County, we're a little bit different because we are dead last in funding in our public schools. And we have the highest taxes per capita. So an example is the Stroudsburg Area School District only gets 15.8% from the state. So our property taxes are off the charts. And we've been, promised that they were going to be reduced, but we've been promised by a Republican majority in Monroe County that they were going to eliminate property taxes, which you and I know they can't do in Pennsylvania. We know it. That's just what they would tell people. So over the last decade, they've only been going up under these Republicans. So my goal is to get in there, fair fund our schools. And sorry to some of the wealthier school districts, but you're going to have to give some up to give some, to the poorer districts, because it's really sad that based on your zip code is what your education is going to be. And it's not fair. So we need to fair fund our schools. By doing that, we should have a property tax, school tax reduction in Pennsylvania. We can make everybody happy. That will make Republicans, Democrats, independents. And the minute I say that and I explain to them why our taxes are high, they just think it's the teachers, right? They don't understand. It's the funding and it's your representatives that aren't doing their job. So that's really helped me. So that is our number one issue, in conjunction with a woman's right to choose. I've had more Republican women tell me they're voting Democrat for the first time in their life. So I just hope they mean it. And I hope they stick by it now that it's 2 months later after the fact.
Yeah. Thank you very much, Tarah. Cathy, there in Delco and Chester County, what are you hearing?
So, yeah, like everybody else, I hear about economy, gas, inflation. But one thing that I've heard a lot is democracy. People are really worried about democracy, and even Republicans. When we first started canvassing Republicans, about 38% of them were saying the extremism in our own party is very concerning. And I don't have a party anymore. I don't recognize my party. I don't like the extremism. And it's kind of morphed now into democracy. And so I just go with that because my opponent voted against protecting the duly elected presidential electors. He voted against barring convicted insurrectionists from holding office in the General Assembly. He is not good on democracy. And he even signed a letter to one of the letters that went to Josh Shapiro and then the inspector auditor or somebody, asking to have them look into the election that we all know was free and fair. So, I tell people that and they're horrified. They're like, are you kidding me? I'm like, the man votes with Doug Mastriano 84% of the time, and one thing that we've learned, and we really wish we had like a camera with us that we could take pictures along the way, because we would make a book, The Many Faces of Doug Mastriano, because mentioning Mastriano's name is like a tell-all. And the face that people make, I wish we could capture that, from vomiting faces to eyes popping out of the head, to looks of horror, to physical reactions. People are like, I can't vote for that guy. Well, good. If you can't vote for Doug Mastriano, then you can't vote for this guy either. And it's that tell-all that lets us know whether we should even bother talking to this person or not, really. And so we tell our canvassers, any way you can weave Doug Mastriano's name in there, just get it in there early on, and you'll know whether you should wrap up that conversation.
All right, Cathy, thank you so much. And, you all are bringing up a very good point about this. So let's continue down this path. So each of you have expressed, how concerned folks are in your districts regarding the fabric of our democracy, right? The polarization, that extremism you were talking about, Cathy. The U.S. Supreme Court, as you probably know, is expected to decide whether to grant authority over elections to state legislatures. It's a legal argument known as the independent state legislature theory. Happened way back with Rehnquist, but that was just a fringe idea back then. But now it has taken center stage. If the Supreme Court adopts this theory, It would radically change our elections. It would give state legislatures broad authority to gerrymander electoral maps and pass voter suppression laws if they so choose. And it would provide them a pathway to overturn the popular vote in presidential elections by refusing to certify the results and instead send their own slate of electors. So I'm sure that sounds very familiar to all of you. Sara, you have volunteered for years at the polls. So let's begin with you. And then once Sara answers, any of you who want to jump in, just please jump on in and join that conversation. So Sara, well, I mean, what is your take and the impact on the Commonwealth?
Well, I have worked the polls for many, many years, and I know how excited people are to come and to have their vote counted. Like, it makes us feel that we're part of the democracy. What has happened over the last couple of years is scary. We have people like my incumbent who did not vote to certify the last election. So that is a really scary and real thing that could happen. And I think that scares people. And I hope that instead of getting scared, that people decide to take back their votes and they vote wisely for people that honor democracy. When you have a parent bringing their child in for the first time to vote, they should feel excited. They should think that their vote's going to count. They should be able to mail in their ballot and not worry that someone is going to take them to court and throw out their vote. This is a right and such an important part of the fabric of our country that I really do feel motivated that this is important, that we get people that respect democracy elected to keep that out, because once they can do their extremism and not certify an election, we know Mastriano has vowed never to certify another election. We have to keep people that vote like him. And I would imagine my opponent votes 90% of the time like Mastriano. So, as many of our incumbents do, we have to keep them out.
Who else wants to jump in on this?
So I'm glad to jump in. I think, definitely what we see is them anticipating a ruling on this and starting to lay some groundwork here in the state. Just what they have going on with this constitutional amendment here in the state of Pennsylvania around the elections being audited by the Auditor General, and what they're trying to do when it comes to the additional voter ID requirements, as well as the piece where they'll stop the where they change with a simple majority, that they can overrule the governor. So those are some things that are in this new SB 106, this constitutional amendment. So we see them trying to, I think, set a foundation here in the state. And even if, Josh Shapiro wins, if they start to try to change the Constitution on some of these issues, I think in anticipation of what the Supreme Court might do, it only gives them more opportunity, more freedom to try and meddle and change our elections. And I think as, Americans and people who are in favor of democracy, we need to be really concerned about that. And we need to be stepping up and making sure that things like this don't happen. They are, we know where they're going with a lot of these things. They're trying to change our Constitution, and that does not bode well for the future, I think, for the state.
Yeah, Tarah or Cathy, are you hearing that this is a motivating factor driving people to the polls?
Yes, if you were a Democrat, this is absolutely a motivating factor. And I'm proud to say that Monroe County turned blue in 2016, and it was red forever. Here's what scares me. There are so many people that don't even know what we're talking about, SB 106, what they're trying to do. They don't know that this could be an amendment on the ballot that is going to be worded so confusing that they're going to vote against their own rights. And this is what they do. And I don't mean to say it, if Republicans can't cheat, then they never play fair, right? Never. It's like they need to cheat any way they can. So it really scares me to death that people really don't believe that this could be the end of our democracy. And I'm sure they felt that way in other countries when things have happened, whether it was, what had happened in World War II with Germany. I mean, did they really think that this was going to happen, right? And the next thing you know, it happened. I think people are still in that mindset, like, oh, we're in 2022, this isn't going to happen. And we were this close on January 6th to having it happen. And I really don't feel that people understand the absolute danger we were truly in, and what our future would be if you keep electing the extreme right-wing group. They come in all shapes and sizes and forms. They come in as the moms for liberty at the school boards. I get bombarded by them. I mean, just today, they have fake profiles. They send you emails. They are little bullies. And if they're not the moms for liberties, they're the Trump parade that goes down my main street with all the flags and F Biden. And it's really, really, it's dangerous. I know they're loud and I know they're small, but they're loud. And we just have to keep stomping out these fires and getting rid of them. And I'm telling you, we need to take the House. We need to keep the House, and we need to keep the Senate in the in the federal government. But my God, we need to take Harrisburg. We need to take it at least equal. We have a lot of seats that we need to get, and there's some scary people out there that could still remain in or get in. So I'm just going to end by saying this. I just really try to educate. On the last debate, I talked about our democracy. And of course, you had the Republican side on, the one side of the aisle, and they start laughing. And I'm like, it's not funny. It's happening. So they try to make it like, we're not taking your democracy, and I just need to get this out to as many people as possible that really don't understand the threats that we're under.
Yeah, well, you both, Lisa and Tarah, were talking about, the constitutional amendments that happened. And I did want to bring up that Erie Representative Ryan Bizzaro, full disclosure, is a friend of mine, has legislation pending that kind of helps with that. It's House Bill 2340. It's born out of his frustration, like your frustration, that the legislature is governing by constitutional amendment in the past couple of years here, because they're bypassing guaranteed vetoes from Governor Wolf and instead altering the Commonwealth's constitution. So basically his legislation would say this: any constitutional amendment moving forward would require a 2/3 majority out of the House versus a simple majority, which is now all that is required. And this is another example of that balance of power. I mean, Republicans have controlled the state House since 2011, the Senate since 1994. So Cathy, what do you want Pennsylvanians to understand about the state legislature to reinforce the importance of flipping one or both chambers?
We got to flip them. I mean, right now, for the last nearly 30 years, the Pennsylvania state legislature has been controlled by Republicans. One of the things that I hear at the door is that, well, Governor Wolf, okay, but all he does is sign or veto the laws. He doesn't make the laws. If you're not happy with how things are happening in Harrisburg, then you need to look at the legislature. And the legislature has been controlled by the Republicans for the last 28 of 30 years. So let's flip that and see what happens and see what good things that we can do for Pennsylvania. Also, we can stop crazy constitutional amendments because you have a bunch of Republicans throwing temper tantrums when Governor Wolf vetoes their awful, horrible bills. And I do want to say, to the point of democracy, and I saw somebody posted about polls, and I don't believe polls. Polls, they're so easily biased or not well done, and what I hear on the doors doesn't reflect the polls frequently. But like this past weekend, I knocked on the door to Republicans, and they said, look, we've been lifelong Republicans. We do not recognize our party at all. We just don't. And we will not vote Republican until they get their heads out their butts. We just won't. And so we are voting for you, Cathy, and we will not vote for a Republican until they figure out what the hell they're doing. So, you know, and I've heard that. That's not the first time I've heard it. It's just not. And the like Tarah was saying, the crazy ones are super loud, and it seems like they're everywhere. But you have a lot of reasonable people. And some people are too lazy to change their party. Some people are holding out hope for their party. I mean, I would love to see the Republican Party come back. I grew up in a Republican house. Now I registered Democrat as soon as I could register a vote, but you know, because I'm a Democrat, you know, but you know, this isn't the party I grew up knowing. It's just not. I don't recognize it at all. And my father, who was a lifelong Republican, he switched to Democrat about 3 years ago because he couldn't take it anymore. A lifelong Republican. So it's just, we need to just keep plugging along and turning out the vote and finding every last Republican who voted for Biden because they were afraid of Trump, and make them realize that the candidates at the bottom of the ticket are no different. I frequently say that Mastriano is Trump on steroids and my opponent is little Doug Jr.
All right, Cathy, thank you so much. Let's talk about money here for a second, because as a certain political strategist coined in 1992, it's the economy, stupid. And a lot of people are talking about that yet again, a decade later. Here we go, right? So how will or can we help cash-strapped Pennsylvanians? Sara, why don't you go ahead and take this, and then anybody else want to jump in, please do.
So I really think that we need to look at investing in our economy through infrastructure. We have a pathway to be able to fuel great jobs all over Pennsylvania, and yet we have policy that sits on the floor because we're too busy trying to say, hold on a second, I think I hit mute, sorry, that we don't want to pass the policies through because we're playing Republicans versus Democrats. And that's unfortunate. And the people that are losing are people that could benefit from these high-paying union jobs. So investing in our economy through infrastructure is going to bless us in so many ways. And we just need to get people in there that want to solve problems and want to make the economy healthy for Pennsylvanians.
Anybody else want to jump in on that?
Yeah, I mean, for me, like I said, we're the lowest in the state for school funding, dead last. If we could fund our schools, people would have 30–40% back in their pocketbooks. And it makes a world of difference. The senior citizens are able to stay in their home. Families, I mean, our taxes are more than our homes here. It is that lopsided. So if we can get together, you know, there's so many ways to help the economy. That is one of them. Pennsylvania has the highest gas tax, you know, in the nation, 57.6 cents. And little things like we have a $5 billion surplus, right? So 2 Democrats wanted to relieve the gas tax for all of 2022. It didn't even get out of committee because it was a Democrat that wanted to do this hey, let's put relief on Pennsylvanians at the pump. Let's show them that we care. And, oh, it's a great idea. It's a Democrat idea. We're not doing it. And I mean, that type of stuff is just, it's got to end. And if we can even be equal in the chambers, more could get done because they don't have the leverage. You know, we just need to at least be equal. I'd love to flip the whole thing and have more, but even equality could work together and get something accomplished because I think you said it best, Sara, or maybe it was Cathy. It's like, oh, it's a Democratic idea. We're not doing it, you know, and it's so sad. So to help the economy, I think is flipping the look of Pennsylvania and who's representing us because we care about people. So we're going to do things that help people's pocketbooks.
Right. So from family budgets to state budgets, I mean, what should be Pennsylvania's priority to do the most good for the most people? And, you know, Lisa, I'm guessing you might say something about public education here as far as budgetary things, since that is why you got into politics after all.
Yeah, so, you know, I do agree that, you know, in the state of Pennsylvania, our education is funded on the backs of the property owners. Our state does not do a good job of funding our schools. I think we can all definitely agree upon that. And definitely it creates the disparities that exist, and it isn't fair. It isn't fair that, you know, it is dependent on where what your zip code is as to what education you're going to get. I think that what we need to do as a state is look at prolonged sustained funding. We need to look at, when I was on the school board back in 2011 to 2015, they were talking about the excise tax on Marcellus shale. So, that is an industry that is here in our state. We need to work to make sure that it's really safe, and we need to make sure that, they are abiding by, that we're holding the corporations accountable who are doing that work. But I think that is, we are one of the few states that allows this to happen, and we do not charge an excise tax. So if we had that and we directed that towards our schools, I think that we could help to, provide for the fair funding formula that needs to exist. We could bring everybody up to the same level, and make sure there's sustained funding, because you can't hire teachers if you don't have sustained funding. One-time funding is great, but you can't plan for the future on one-time funding. You can't hire teachers. You can't invest in curriculum. You can't fund infrastructure projects. So actually a lot of the money that the schools got this year, they can't use that for infrastructure. So those are some of the things that I think we need to do when we look at education and trying to shift the burden off of property tax owners. Now, can we get rid of property tax here in Pennsylvania altogether? No. I mean, unfortunately, that ship, I think, has sailed. But can we make it so that we lower it? And can we also make it so that our schools are on equal footing? And, I think that is definitely something where you need to have the political will for people to do that. I don't think there's the political will to do that. There's also not the will to crack down on corporations here in the state of Pennsylvania. The other thing, when it just comes to the economy overall, time to raise the minimum wage. We need to do that as well. And that is something that, I hope that we can, get a majority in the House and the Senate, and try to get something done around that, because the time is long past for that as well.
Tara, what were you going to say?
So HB and SB 76 was to eliminate school property taxes, and it's a joke because you don't eliminate a tax, you're shifting the burden somewhere else. So the reason why we have always used property taxes is because it's stable, it's stability. You know what you're going to get. If you're going to go ahead and raise the sales tax, if you've got a terrible economy, your schools might not be funded the following year. Or better yet, it only hurts the poor and the middle class when you do that. So property taxes are fine. Nobody had a problem with property taxes until the Republicans started taking away from education. When they started taking away from public education, then the property taxes just kept going up. So it's not the property taxes, it's just the fairness and inequity of that. And we are only one of 34 states that does not take a severance tax on the drillers. Texas funds their education on that. I don't want to see any more drilling, but they're here, we have it, it needs to be safe, and we need to get our fair share. We are a Commonwealth, we own those natural resources, and we're not taking anything from it. So
yeah, this is true. I mean, there are 34 oil and natural gas producing states. We're one of 34. We are the only one, as you said, that doesn't have that severance tax. What we have is an impact tax, right? So people are going to say, well, it's an impact tax, so isn't that something? It's something. You get a couple $100 million, but there is a left-leaning think tank that I think crunched the numbers on impact tax versus severance tax. And when you think about doing a severance tax instead, like everybody else does, we're talking billions of dollars in revenue.
And what they do is they'll tap and then they'll close, we're done on that. So they don't have to keep paying. It's all funded the Republican Party. Okay, every single Republican is funded by this.
And the impact tax, so definitely the political will to do this, and the impact tax, unfortunately, a lot of the smaller drillers that came in to do this, they don't, they have gone out of business. So once they're gone, an impact tax doesn't help. So they've already created the problems and now they're gone and there's nothing that anyone can do about it. So that's also why a lot of the problems aren't being solved. So.
Right. And Chris, I'm looking at the clock here and it's 6:22. So I know that you did want to open it up to the folks to ask questions as well. Did you want to do that now, or did you want to do one last roundup question with everybody? And you're on mute, I think.
Why don't we do one last round, because most of the, I've been looking for questions and haven't seen any specific ones to ask.
Okay, and so for all of you out there that are joining us, A, thank you so much. And B, if you've got questions, go ahead and throw it in the chat there, and hopefully we can get some of them answered for you. But in the meantime, I did want to ask you guys about something inspirational that kind of powered you on the trail, because we know that knocking on doors and making these cold calls is difficult. People can slam the door, hang up on you, and that can outnumber conversation some days. But I know that while you've been out there, each of you have told me about some inspiring folks that you have met on the trail. So Tarah, why don't we start with you, because you had a couple of folks that their stories were inspiring, or at least even were able to propel you to think, yeah, this is important.
Yeah, so I'll give two quick stories because I know I talked the last question a lot. I'm very sorry. I didn't mean to do that. The first one was a 73-year-old woman who is in the Democratic Party, and she had to have an abortion, and she had to do it at a late-term pregnancy. Her and her husband were so excited it was their first child, and the baby wasn't going to make it, and she was having complications, and basically it was your baby's going to not make it, and it's not healthy for you to continue to carry this baby to term. And I believe it was the ectopic pregnancy. So she had to have that. She told her story at a round table to listen to a 73-year-old woman tell a story about how she so desperately wanted to have a child, her and her husband, and she couldn't. And it was, if she didn't have that abortion, she'd be dead, and she wouldn't be there to talk about it with her other, she's got another child, still married to the same gentleman. And then the other one was a woman by the name of Pat. She lives in Marshall's Creek, and her school taxes are $14,000 a year, and she's going to have to sell her home because she's 85 years old and she can't pay her taxes anymore. And it really hits home with you. These people work their whole entire life and have their homes paid off. And I mean, $14,000 a year in school taxes, and she's 85 years old. And that really just hits me really hard. Yeah. And to think she's got to leave her home because she can't afford to pay the taxes.
Yeah.
So
yeah. That's tough.
I actually think, Lucy, we're going to have to cut it off because I didn't realize exactly what time it was. And people have been leaving, but thank you. And one of the questions we did have is, do people think Josh Shapiro has coattails? I'm getting a nodding no from Cathy Spahr.
Has a what?
Has
coattails to bring y'all in.
Oh my gosh. I'm like, what do you mean?
Oh, I'm sorry.
Oh, yeah, I think
we'll vote for him and then just head down the ballot.
I think he helps.
I don't know. I think Mastriano actually helps more. I mean, I just, I can't think that way. I just have to put my head down and knock the doors and do the work. Right. I got to run like I'm down by 10 and keep going, and
well, thank you.
We'll see what happens.
Yeah, the one question I had I really wanted, I don't know if you were going to ask this, Lucy, but my final comment to everybody is, what do you want everyone to do? Anybody who's on the call, do you want them to send you money? You're putting in your things there. Do you want them to come knock doors for you? What do you want people to do for you?
Sarah's
all
going
the above. All the above.
If you want to come knock, we'd love to have you. We are knocking like crazy. GOTV. So this is the last crunch. If you want to donate, as I said, my race is the most expensive in the state. So we're glad to have that. And the more money that we can raise, and it also helps other candidates as well. So yeah, if you want to do that, if you want a phone bank, we're doing that. So yeah, anything anyone wants to do.
All of the above, absolutely. And I have to work the whole time I'm running for office. I did take 8 days off so I could focus on knocking doors, but I have to work the whole time. So, I need door knockers. I need to help get people at the doors and have those conversations, because we know those conversations make a difference.
Thank you. Sarah, can people do anything for you?
Same thing, knocking doors. I'm a worker too, but I think doors are the way to win. And so anyone that wants to knock or make phone calls, they're a friend of mine. So thank you.
You can go to the website for any one of the candidates you see today. You can go to turnpablue.org and see where they're doing events around the state for many of our candidates. And you can send them money, and you can send them prayers and good thoughts and good wishes, but mostly go knock doors. So Lucy, thank you so much for—
You're welcome. It's always enjoyable.
For working with us, for getting out here for us. Thank you to our candidates. We'll be thinking of you. We're so proud of you. I love the comment earlier about women helping women. It is one of the really fascinating things about our work is that that we're able to do this and everybody feels good about the support of these candidates. We will be, I'm planning to be in Harrisburg myself on January 1st to see a lot of our women sworn in. And I also want to go see Joanna McClinton sworn in as speaker when we flip the House. And so regardless of what polls say, these are my goals and these are on my calendar. And I look forward to seeing more of you there. We will be running another session of Tales from the Trails on Tuesday, starring Lucy Noland and 4 other candidates. So please join us or tell other people, hey, I learned some great things. I want to learn more from other candidates. So please join us at a breakfast time next week. And thank you very much. Good luck to all of you.